you had 9 years to come up with a story, and you have 2.5 hours to tell the story. But why are the missing chunks so big?
Welcome back. We are back. The Eye of the Storm podcast. I'm here with my boy Daniel.
Hey.
Daniel, what's the best recent thing you saw?
So I did watch The Strangers 2008 this week, and it is everything people say it is. And it's really interesting in retrospect to kind of see what we were right about in our spoiler cast last week. It's just the same story, but so much better, so much more atmospheric. The acting is so much better. And we were right about this thing about how they in the remake they copied a bunch of elements, but then didn't motivate them in the way that it was in the 2008 version. It's almost like they have member berries for one movie, which is a strange thing to do. But like the Church Boys, like the Writing on the Wall, like the record that's playing on infinite loop, like all of these things exist for a reason in the original, but in the remake they're just there. And you're supposed to associate them vaguely with the Strangers. And of course, they're not motivated, they're not set up, they don't serve any purpose. And that makes the movie feel even more weird and random and disjointed. So we had a suspicion about that last week, and I paid attention for it as I was watching the 2008 version. And yeah, it is all that. So if you like the idea of the Strangers, but this one didn't really do it, like the 2008 version is actually really good. And I think it is maybe not the best horror movie, but it is up there. Like it is a really good one. It does one thing really well. It's really focused. I generally like movies that are focused, where they have one idea and they execute that idea, and they try to do that as well as possible. There's no bloat, there's no subplots, there's no side characters, and The Strangers is exactly that. I'm still not sure that it actually captures the idea of a home invasion exactly, but just the suspense of it and the way the Strangers just toy with people. And there's even this line about, like, it's even really interesting, like in the remake, there's this line about how your first kill is the hardest and so on. And that's actually said in the first movie, but it's said by one of the Strangers, not by one of the victims, which makes a lot more sense. Like as they drive away, one of the women says, the next one will be easier. Suggesting that this was the first kill and they want to keep continuing and they're working out some kinks. So they had a plan and they're learning and they're adapting, which makes a whole lot more sense than this weird scene where the guy confronts one of the Strangers with at gunpoint and then doesn't do anything. So I watched that. It was everything people said it was, and I'm glad I watched it. And if there's a couple of people out there who, because of the Strangers remake, are discovering the older movie, then I think it's almost worth it. It's just like it deserves more attention than it had until recently.
Honestly, take 2 quick questions. How did you feel about the use of silence in the 2008 version in comparison to the remake in 2024? And also, how did you feel about the murder scene at the end in 2008 in comparison to the 2024?
So in general, I think sound is really, really well used in the original. The fact that it's so silent makes noise like the record player or the banging on the door or the fire alarm going off, all of which are deliberate by the Strangers. It makes those sudden noises even more startling, and it also just lets the scene speak for itself. And like there's no music that tells you how to feel. Right on that level, I think it really fits. Like one of the things we talked about this in our spoiler cast last week. One of the things that makes a home invasion scary is the uncertainty, right? You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the other person is going to do. You don't know what they want. You don't know how far they're going to take this. And the silence actually undermines that because it kind of lets the scene kind of hang in midair, both the characters and the audience. And so it kind of underlines this idea of not knowing what's going on, right? If there was music, then that would convey information. Right? It would tell you how to feel, but the fact that there's nothing for a long time, I think really really supports the theme.
Literally what the remake kept on doing, like it kept so that's why I said the background music just for me. What do you think about the end scene in the 2008?
Last scene, I'm not too sure about that. Like this whole jump scare. The boys find them.
No,
And
I mean
Chief,
the murder scene. Sorry, the murder scene.
like I didn't think it was the strongest part of the movie.
I wouldn't say strongest, but I'm just mean in comparison to.
Yeah, I think the main difference is that at that point I care about these characters and I'm invested in what they're doing. So it has more of an effect when they die. But the actual way in which they are killed is okay. It does its job, but it's not something that wowed me. Especially the fact that she has 2 fake out deaths. Well, I don't think it was a good choice. Like once where she wakes up while the strangers are still in the house, and then the second time when the boys discover her. And both times she seems to be dead and then comes back to life. And doing it once is already pushing it. Doing it twice is just too much. So if a remake could fix anything about the strangers, it would be the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying the remake did that better, but like that was the one part that could be improved.
Okay. For me, personally, that was, like I say, I watched it when I was young, so when I saw that scene, that was very traumatic. I was like, damn.
Yeah. It feels a little bit, that is the one part to me that feels cheap. Because horror movies like that are full of fake deaths, where the characters have plot armor in the sense that they won't die until the script says so. But there's no logical progression in terms of, okay, by the logic of this universe, now this person should be dead. Often it's the villain who keeps coming back from impossible injuries, but doing it with the victim, I think is kind of the same in terms of it feels cheap. Like it felt like it's a card that the writer can play over and over again until the movie's over, and then like there's no way to really predict which one of these is going to be fatal. So that's something that horror movies in general do that I think is lame. And this one did it twice. So,
by the way, I'm just referring to the act itself in terms of the stabbing.
Yeah.
I'm not referring to the actual ending of her waking up. I wasn't doing that. I just mean
Yeah.
in terms of the act of the stabbing in comparison to the 2008 version, in comparison to the 2024 version. For me, I loved the 2008 version stabbing scene because, like I said, it was very traumatic for me. Not in a bad way, as in like I was traumatized, but I was like, damn, that kind of got me shook. Sorry, I don't want to stick to this too much because we're not here to talk about the strangers, but anything you want to add?
No, that's it. Like, the consensus that not only is 2008 vastly better than the remake, but also it's just on its own right a way above average horror movie. I think it's true, and I think anybody who at least liked the idea of it should check out the 2008 version.
I agree. I definitely agree. Like I said, I don't know if you guys watched the other review, but The Strangers for me is top 3 horror movies of all time. If you want to know a reason why, then just go and watch the other review. Go and watch our review on The Strangers Chapter 1. But in terms of the best thing that I saw, I'm currently watching the Blade trilogy. I'm on the 3rd one. Just finished watching 1 and 2. I just finished watching 1 and 2. And mate, I watched Blade so long ago. I think I watched the first one. The first time I watched it was in primary school. So I was like, I don't know how old I was. I was probably like 10 or 9 or something like that. So yeah, this trilogy is amazing. I can't wait for the new one. Wesley Snipes' performance in freaking Blade is amazing. Actually, after watching Blade 1 and 2, I actually searched on Google Wesley Snipes movies to go watch, because when I do that, that's how you know the actor's performance in that film was amazing. Just Blade as a whole was just amazing. Even though like the fight scenes are a bit not corny, but a bit cheesy at times, but it's excusable with just everything as a whole. Sometimes the fight scenes are really amazing, but just the Blade just as a whole, his character is the kills, the obviously the relationship between him and, was it Winston or Wilson or his Whistler, yeah. It's just amazing. I can't wait to watch the 3rd one, but I just can't wait for the new film.
If it comes out and if the MCU can actually, like, my big hope is that Deadpool 3 is such a big success that they make Blade the hardest of R ratings.
Yes.
Right, and just have him exist in a separate, maybe technically in the same continuity, but just in his own pocket. Kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy were off in their own corner doing their space comedy stuff. And I think Blade can exist just in the seedy underbelly of the Marvel universe and occasionally maybe cross over with somebody. But he should be his own thing. And I think making Blade not the dark and gritty slayer of vampires like robs him of what's cool about him.
Exactly. I think just don't touch it. Don't try and universalize it. Just keep his origins. Keep everything. Like just don't touch it. Just leave it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
keep all of that. Of course, when I mean don't universalize, I don't mean as in like don't add in new things. I just mean don't universalize it when it comes to his character. If you want to add in new things, fine. If as long as it makes sense, But in terms of his character, don't change anything. Just keep it Blade. Is Wesley Snipes coming back, or is it going to be a new
No,
character?
Wesley Snipes is in Hollywood jail for being a conspiracy theorist and tax evader. He came to believe that income taxes are illegal and you don't have to pay them.
Oh, damn.
And the U.S. government had some different ideas. So yeah, he's not coming back. But also, it's been close to 20 years. Like even the new actor is I think pushing 40 because of how long this movie has been in development. So let's just give a new actor the role, regardless of. Like I think Wesley Snipes' performance in this is great, and I'm not usually a fan of his in other movies. But yeah, he's just perfect in this. And so I think the fine balance is to find an actor who can interpret that role differently, so that it's not just he's not just doing a Wesley Snipes impression, but also in a way that sticks to what's cool about the character. And I think that's a very difficult balance to strike. And up until now, I would have thought there's no way Disney can do this because they would be too afraid of the edge. But having seen some of the promo material for Deadpool 3, they seem to be throwing stuff at the wall now, and there's a chance that Blade could ride that to being something distinct and not just another vehicle for one-liners.
And the vampire, this one was probably one of the best I've ever seen, especially in the second film with the, I don't know what they were referred to as, but the more developed vampires or whatever they were. They like.
They're based on Indonesian vampires, I think. So in Indonesian folklore, there's this type of vampire where the jaw kind of opens, and that is loosely what these vampires are based on.
The best I've ever seen. They look so disgusting and scary. I was like, flip me. Yeah, even the way that they were sucking the blood, it felt just so gruesome. Like when you see Twilight and you see all the vampire movies, the way that they, bite their victims was nowhere in comparison to in Blade. Like you hear the sound and the way that they just dig it into the neck. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah. And it's not just Twilight. Like there's been this long trend of not making vampires monsters, but like tragic, misunderstood heroes. And I like them when they're monsters. I like them when they're predators. The Blade movies certainly do that.
Just it's gonna be hard replacing that character, the actor, we'll see.
Let us know next week what movie 3 was like.
Yeah, definitely. Well, alright, now we're here. Main discussion. Furiosa.
You want to get started?
Yeah, Furiosa, surprisingly, I believe is in contention of being top 3 films of 2024. This movie, the journey in this film was something which I couldn't get enough of. Creative and nutty kills, smooth transitions. Aesthetically, it surprised me as well, because one thing that I didn't like about the previous film, Mad Max's, the previous film, was the look. In terms of, it was very yellow for me and orange. Like it felt very oversaturated, and I really didn't like that. I think that's something which kind of turned, like it was a turn off for me. So going into Furiosa, actually I was not looking forward to this film. I really wasn't. So when I watched, like, just the aesthetic looking Furiosa looked amazing, and the way that the camera shots, it felt more that it had the whole erratic visual look, which kind of added more to the intensity and the feel of chaos in the dystopian world that they were in. This, personally, for me, is definitely in my top 10 dystopian war. Like the fight scenes is definitely in my top 10 dystopian. Just the world itself was definitely in my top 10 dystopian films of all time. The fight scenes and like the use of racing in this film, freaking loved it. I think there was one scene that was like it felt like it was 10 minutes. It felt long, but I was like, give me more. This film as a whole was amazing. It went above my expectations. Like I said, top 3 films of all time. In terms of, I'm not even going to do top 10 films of all time. I'm not too sure. There's a lot of films out there, but this movie was it was remarkable. Like, I just didn't expect it to be this good. Like I said, I wasn't looking forward going into this film. I just didn't think nothing of it. Mad Max kind of left a bad taste in my mouth from what I remember. It wasn't bad. I just couldn't watch the movie because it just felt too oversaturated. But yeah, man, it was a fascinating world. I love the whole especially I'm not gonna do a spoiler, but I love the whole how they ended it with the whole myth, like the whole like the myth surrounding the antagonist's death. Um and the fee and let me tell you one thing. One thing that they did so well in this film was vengeance. Because let me tell you, the torment is definitely a film. Like tormental death is definitely a big theme in this film, and that goes way beyond vengeance. Like it goes way beyond vengeance, and yeah, especially individual performances, another thing which was amazing. I the sense of humor in this one, I liked it too. I definitely like the sense of humor in this one too. But you know, not for me. In terms of, I'm just trying to think of what I didn't like, which I'll get to. But Daniel, let me hear your opinion. I'm kind of giving this film Raven reviews.
So, big picture overview is I almost love this movie. I think there's a lot of pieces to like you said, the world, the characters, the design, the scenery, all of it just looks really impressive, really imaginative. It's really trying to bring this wasteland to life, where people are clinging on to survival and are trying to just make things work. And that is reflected in how people look and what the settlements look like and the vehicles and the weapons and this balance between trying to preserve what came before while at the same time developing something new. All of these things work really well. The weak point for me is Furiosa. Yeah, so my problem is that she doesn't have a character arc, not really. She basically does stuff for 2.5 hours. And then a lot of, especially the last half hour, well, once she has gotten the revenge she's looking for, a bunch of stuff happens that is needed for the status quo that we know in the next movie, or in the previous movie that happens after this. So things like her working for Immortan Joe or her being his right hand and stuff like that. All of that, I think, is really unmotivated in the sense that the story doesn't build towards it and the character never makes choices either at all or in a way that I can understand, which is really weird because this movie is really long. And I think it's an achievement that this is a 2.5 hour movie that does not drag. Like, it has really good pacing. Like, I was engaged the entire time because there's constantly stuff happening. But I think it pays attention to the wrong things, where things that are not important to the story are dragged out extremely long. The things that are actually needed for Furiosa's character arc, so that we can she has the agency that she needs to be a protagonist and that she needs to make those decisions that put her into the status quo that we know she ends up in. That part is completely rushed. And maybe if you watch it again, you can pause or you can rewatch. Maybe all the information is there, but on my first viewing, it felt just like a big case of because the script says so, which is a real shame because there's a whole bunch of stuff in this movie that I was really on board with. I was on board with her struggle to survive. I was on board with her trying to get home. I was on board with the war between the warlords that are fighting. Like, there are these 3 fortresses, and whoever controls them controls the wasteland. The conflict between them is kind of the backdrop, and that was really. But that conflict was something that was really compelling, I thought, and her being kind of on the sidelines of this conflict and kind of just trying to survive in the margins between them. I think was really well done. It's just they forgot to give her a character arc.
One thing I will agree with is, well, not agree with, one thing, it kind of adds on to what you're saying. I don't think there was internal conflict with her, or like conflict which makes her, that needs to progress her into the next level. That's something which I did notice, and something that I will agree with. But
internal conflict is great. I think it's one of the most compelling ways to have conflict. But there also isn't really external conflict other than her trying to survive.
Yeah.
But it's like stuff happens to her a lot. Like, she doesn't have really a plan. It's just one thing happens after another, and then eventually she's in a position where she can achieve her goals, and then she does, and then the movie ends.
But that's for me something which I feel can kind of not all the time, but in this instance, I do feel like her journey kind of can outweigh it can outweigh the fact that her character arc wasn't really up to par, up to your standard. Because I think we already know what her battle was. Her battle was to seek revenge for her mother's death. So, and I think her journey to that was exciting enough to kind of forgive the fact that her character arc for you wasn't I wouldn't. Would you agree to say it wasn't complete, or it just wasn't? There wasn't enough.
I would say it's missing, and I've seen this once, right? So it may be that there are details there that expand on this a little bit more. But just watching this for the first time, she didn't seem to really have a plan. She didn't really seem to want to pursue Dementus. She kind of just ended up in a position where she could kill him, but she doesn't have anything to do. Like she doesn't formulate a plan and then executes it. Whatever, and that could have taken many different forms. I don't think that's there at all. I think she just ends up in a position where he's alone and has lost his followers, and she can't take the revenge that she wants. And that scene I think is great. Like that showdown, like on the sand between those two, where he's trying to bullshit her until the very last moment, and she's not even angry. She's just tired and annoyed almost, right? Like I thought that was really like she wasn't
what you expected her to be in that situation.
Yeah, like it wasn't the obvious thing to do. No. Right? It was like she could have been a lot angrier. She could have been a lot more violent. It could have been a big spectacle fight on some big set piece or something. But it wasn't. It was just two people in the desert.
It's a tormentor death. That's what I loved about that scene. Was that she tormented him rather than killed him straight away. And for me personally, when it comes to films, one thing I'm always disappointed on is how the antagonist dies, how the villain dies, because I feel like their death is just so light. Whereas this one, I shouldn't say this because I'm Christian, but this one, it felt so satisfying that this guy was actually tormented before. Like he was tormented to the point where we saw the torment, but we was tormented to the point where we don't even know how he died. Like his torment, even though there was different theories around how he died, but it ended with okay, we saw how she tormented him. And he could still be alive to this day, still being tormented with obviously how it ended. So it was like that for me felt satisfying. I'm like, I shouldn't say that, but it felt satisfying in the movie context. It felt satisfying.
So the specific death scene or the final showdown and what happened and what comes out of that, I think that's great, and I think that's clearly the emphasis that went into that. I just think, like, if this is really about Furiosa's journey, then she should have had a journey. I don't think she does. I think she's just constantly trying to survive, which is fine. Like that is a fine thing to do in a post-apocalyptic setting, and there are many different places you could take this. But I thought it actually had the same problems as the Hunger Games prequel 6 months ago, where it's the origin story of a major character, but not the hero of the original story, and it's set at an earlier time where that character is shown in their formative years. In the case of Hunger Games, it was Cornelius Snow. Here it was Furiosa, but they're both shown as unfinished people who go through a number of experiences where the movie wants you to believe that in both cases that those experiences turn those characters into the characters we later know. And I think in both cases it doesn't do that really. Like it doesn't really show us the process. Like my gold standard for this now is Dune Part 2, where we see every step of the way where Paul Atreides becomes the Messiah. Right? There's an entire movie dedicated to this journey. And we understand each step of the way, even though he doesn't actually have much agency in this. Like for long periods of Dune Part 2, Paul is actively trying to resist that process, and it still happens, and we understand each time why it happens. Here we don't, or at least I didn't understand why she ended up ended up where she ends up.
But can I count? The reason why I counted that is because we have to think about the environment. Paul's environment was very structured, from the Empire to even like when he teamed up with Fremen, that was structured too. Yeah. Where Furiosa's environment is very chaotic. Even how she ends up in that environment is very chaotic as well. So I think the reason why I think she kind of does have a journey is because even though like her plan was very chaotic, that's a reflection of her environment. So a lot of the times she ends up in her situation. So I wouldn't really expect her to be as calculated as, for example, Paul, whereas he's brought up in an environment that's very structured. He's brought up in a freaking empire where, he's got soldiers, ranks, all of that. Yeah. Where Furiosa, she's born in a chaotic environment filled with vultures and just crazy men. Do you know what I'm saying? So for me, I felt like she had a journey because she's ending up in all she has is one, like she's just got one thing on her mind, that is revenge. But it's like she's freestyling as she goes along.
And that's first of all, I agree with you with everything up until the revenge part. Like she wants revenge, but she doesn't really take action to pursue it, right? She kind of hides in Immortan Joe's ranks for a while, right? And then she joins the convoy, and then because of the convoy, she witnesses like the collapse of Dementus's empire, and that leads her into a position where she's alone with Dementus, and she's the one with the gun, and he's at his lowest point. Like logically, each step makes sense, and you're absolutely right that she lives in a chaotic environment, and that could be, and the plot could be a reflection of that. I'm just saying, and it's not just the Dementus part. Like, first of all, I think the Dementus part is not the most egregious one. Like, it would have been nice if. So I guess there's a couple of different aspects to this. One of them is that she did not plan and take action to actually get revenge on Dementus in the way she could have. Second one is that I think her life in the convoy should have been the bulk of the movie. Where here it's very abbreviated because we don't really understand why Jack is the only good guy in the entire wasteland, right? Like, why he takes her in and how their relationship develops and why she begins to trust him and why he's willing to give up everything to help her get home. Like all of these things, like none of these things are problems exactly, but they're all very, very quick. And in a 2.5-hour movie, nothing should be rushed. Right, so that is the thing that should, in my opinion, should have been the bulk of the movie. This entire process where she thinks she's a victim of circumstance and is just caught up in this chaotic world and just trying to survive one day to the next. And then she meets Jack, becomes part of the convoy for the first time, feels like she actually has some measure of control over her life and starts to build something up and starts to put things into place to actually execute the plan of get home. Right, because that's her primary goal, right? At this point, killing Dementus is not her goal; it's getting home, and she just needs the resources and an opportunity and so on.
I actually agree with the Jack point, because at first, when his character was introduced, and then how it ended, at first I thought maybe he was a spy working for what's that Chris Hemsworth character? What was his character?
Dementus.
Yeah, at first I thought he was like a spy working for his character to find out where her actual hometown was.
Yeah.
That's what I first thought. But then when he died, I was like, oh, okay, so he was just.
Yeah, but even while he's alive, he keeps doing
risking
life. He's giving, like, this is a world that is dominated by scarcity, right? Like nobody has enough. Everybody tries to get as much as they can, and that justifies everything. And every single person in this world operates according to that law. And Jack is the only one who doesn't. And it's not clear why, other than he's a good guy. Like, I'm not saying it's a complete disaster, right? I generally like the character. I generally like how you have kind of these two sane people in an insane world kind of trying to help each other survive. Because this way, each one of them has a better chance of achieving what they want. I'm totally on board with that. And actually, one of my criticisms of the post-apocalyptic genre is that everybody is awful, when actually collaboration and cooperation are really powerful things, and if you can build trust between people, that together they can achieve more than they otherwise could, right? So people should constantly be trying to build that trust, and the fact that people like Dementus and Immortan Joe are not capable of this and have built their empires on a different strategy makes perfect sense. But I like this whole idea that you have these two people running these convoys trying to kind of build something and trying to do a little bit more than just survive or achieve things not based on just exploiting other people, because they're the only ones. Like, that convoy is like the symbol of cooperation, right? Like, everybody else is trying to exploit each other, but the convoy is about trade. It's about sharing. It's about it's about trust. So, like, her learning that in the context of running these convoys between the three fortresses, I think should have been the bulk of the movie. And then during that movie, so the fact that is rushed is inexcusable, I think, given the length of the movie. And it also undermines her character development. And then the third leg of it is why she joins Immortan Joe, why he accepts her, why she becomes his right hand, why she is entrusted with guarding the wives. Right, all of that stuff, and also why it's her mission to save them, other than it's the right thing to do. Like, none of that is. I didn't think any of that was really established and developed.
I think it's just the whole,
Yeah.
Women. So I think that's the reason why she just saved them. Like, it wasn't. I don't think it was her main goal, but it's something like, okay, they're women and they're tribes. So I
And
think
then, and that's just one out of several that isn't really established. But we also don't see her try this. Like we don't see her come to the aid or defense of any of the others, right? Like she's locked in that vault for what seems like a couple of days.
yeah.
Like it could be longer, but not much happens in that context, right? Like it's basically a scene or two scenes, and we don't even. I think that is also what that probably could have been cut in some way, because it's two scenes where not much happens and she escapes immediately afterwards. And it's just that the entire second half of the movie I thought was full of these things that didn't seem quite thought through. And given that they had 9 years to make this movie, it seems a bit strange.
Oh, I didn't know. 9 years, damn.
Fury Road came out 2015, which is 9 years ago. And the director wanted to make the next one, which wasn't always a Furiosa prequel, but just the next one in that series immediately, and that there were some legal disputes. I don't know the whole story, but basically there were reasons for why it took years and years. But during this time, George Miller probably thought about the story and tried to refine it, even if he couldn't actually produce it yet. So the fact that there's stuff like this in there, given how much time he had to incubate the story, seems a bit strange. And I think it really drags on the movie.
I hear where you're coming from. So Furiosa for you was what kind of let you down in this film. So speaking of characters, how did you feel about Dementus? Firstly, I'm going to mention, and let me just quickly mention, Dementus is a performance for me was amazing. But how did you feel about his connection with Furiosa? Because you obviously said with Jack, the whole interaction between him and Furiosa I agree, it was kind of random, and it was okay. So there wasn't like a reason behind why he was being kind, like why he was being kind to Furiosa and why he kind of took her under his wing. So with
and it's not that it doesn't make sense. It's more that
for me,
if there had been more time to develop it would have been better.
Yeah,
because it seems a little bit hand wavy.
Yeah, but for me it doesn't make sense, because like now that you say it, for me, and I'm thinking of it now, it doesn't really make sense, because like there's so many people that you can choose from. Were you just nice to her because she was a woman, or like did you like her? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because for me, at first I thought,
in the attack on the Warwick, he did see how competent she was and that she would risk her life to help other people. Right? So I can buy that he saw potential in her. Like if he was looking, so first of all, he lost his entire crew and had to build a new one, and she was the only survivor, and he saw that she's competent and is a team player. All of which are good reasons for her to be the first member of his new crew.
And to the woman as well. So I thought there was some sort of sexual attraction there, maybe.
But he also never acts on it. There's probably the only person in that world that doesn't. So, but yeah, no, it's like because he thinks she's a good member of the team. Yeah. Like that's why. Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about his connection to Furiosa? Because do you think that kind of like? Because I get his character, I've seen I've seen connections like that kind of like blossom out of nowhere, in terms of like, someone like the villain will kidnap a child and then end up seeing them as a daughter, or just, there'll be some sort of father-child, father-daughter, father-son type of relationship, which, the villain sees for some reason. Yeah. So how do you feel about his connection with Furiosa? Do you feel like it made sense in a sense where, because you mentioned the thing with Jake in terms of like, why did he pick her? So did you feel kind of the same way with Chris Hemsworth's character towards Furiosa?
A little bit. I didn't quite understand why he would actually. So I understand why she's valuable. Just healthy people in the wasteland are a resource, right? And the fact that he wouldn't just let her go makes sense. I didn't quite understand why he essentially adopted her and kind of started training her. Maybe I missed something. It didn't seem like one of the things I like about Dementus is that he's a lot like Proximus Caesar in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, in that he is smarter than his world allows him to be. Right? He sees the big picture, and he also sees his own limitations. He knows he can never fulfill his potential in this world, so he has to make the best out of it. In the case of Dementus, it's this whole thing about essentially inventing propaganda or reinventing it, where he can unite people under his leadership, and he's like a cult leader, which is supported by the robes that he wears, and which make him look like some kind of spiritual leader initially, right? Like the white robes and everything, and those get increasingly bloodier as the movie goes on until finally it's just stained in red completely. But I like how he tries to preserve knowledge, and I like how he tries to do a little bit more than just raw violence. But he constantly keeps butting up against the limitations of the world that he lives in, because he can't just invent civilization from scratch, right? But he can kind of push the boundaries, which is then a little bit more it seems to me like he was two different characters. So in the first half, he was kind of a visionary, kind of like he was the most intellectual of all the three warlords, probably. Like we only see two of them, but Immortan Joe rules more through fear and violence, intimidation, whereas Dementus is more about actually motivating people. But then it's strange that he so easily alienates one of the crews, right? That ends up actually rebelling against him, and then very quickly, once he runs Gastown, his entire empire falls apart because he can't keep his hands together. Those two things don't really seem to add up to me. Or did it to you? Like, did you feel like his collapse, the collapse of his authority over Gastown was foreshadowed?
I didn't think it was foreshadowed. I think it felt very abrupt. I didn't see it coming. I didn't sense that there was any, besides obviously the other crew, besides his crew actually betraying him. I didn't see
what was foreshadowed was that there is resentment because one time he used one of the groups that had joined his coalition as a resource, right? Like where he orders their leader to I think impersonate war boys. He tries to he boss one of the people around. He says, I only take orders from my leader. And then the leader is forced to say, do what he says. And you can see the resentment on his face. And then a couple of scenes later, that is the faction that has broken away and is now raiding the caravans into Gastown. So there are cracks in his alliance. But every time in the first half, at least, I had the sense that his charisma and his ability to motivate people was real. Because every time people talked about him when he wasn't present, they were still talking about him as if they worshipped him. Right? It's not like it wasn't all a charade. And I didn't pick up on anything that suggested that it is all a farce. Because if it is a farce, then...
But did they say it was a farce? As in,
it falls apart immediately. And...
but that's what I thought was abrupt. Because, what exactly... how? Why did it fall the way that it did? Because I understand that a fall was inevitable, right? But
but I actually don't think it was inevitable. Usually, what happens, in history, what happens and stuff like this is that, a charismatic leader can bring together different groups, and then that lasts until the charismatic leader is gone, and then the next leader is not as charismatic, and then it all falls apart.
But I'm talking about in the sense of Furiosa's goal, because a fall was inevitable. Because I don't see Furiosa dying, so it's okay.
Yeah, well, she can't die because she's in the other movie. But
exactly.
The whole thing about Dementus is he can inspire people, he can convince them to fight for him, but then it all just falls apart immediately not immediately, but very abruptly in Gastown. In one scene we see riots going on in Gastown because the supply lines were disrupted or something and people were starving. And then the next time they are in Gastown, it's open warfare, open civil war, right? And at that point, Dementus is just a coward and a charlatan. He shows no ability to inspire and motivate anybody. He's just a coward running away, and he even sacrifices his own people for his safety. Right? There's this whole thing where they split up in three directions. Furiosa is chasing him, and his remaining crew splits up in three directions and he's in disguise basically, and he's basically using the other two as decoys. So basically what I'm saying is these seem to be two different characters. Right? You have the charismatic leader who is able to punch way above his weight because he can inspire other people and convince other people that his cause is their cause, right? And then we have the coward who hides in the dirt, who uses his people as human shields basically. And I don't understand the connection between the two.
But to be fair, a lot of the times characters generally do transition into a second character, especially for example, you said first he started off as a leader and then he ended up as a coward. That for me, that does work if it was executed well. Like I said, it was very abrupt, the transformation.
Yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from, but for me, I generally like a character does like a character, he does change. He does end up changing. I just don't understand why, like how his change came about so abruptly. Like we didn't really see the downfall.
And that's my point, that we don't see why he
Yeah.
fails, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't just want to bring up real history because like this is still post-apocalyptic science fiction, all of that, right? But this movie tries to be smart about how power works and how charismatic leaders arise and all of that, and how scarcity motivates people and all of these things, right? It references real world ideas all the time, and actually things that were surprisingly insightful, I thought. But the way you would convey that Dementus's authority is hollow, there are ways to do this. Like you could foreshadow it by how his people talk about him when he's not around, or how he uses other people, for instance. Like if he doesn't, he has a habit of not rewarding people's trust, for example. Like they trust him and then he abuses that trust for his own personal gain or something. Right? Like there are like charismatic leaders in the real world that do this, right? Where they convince you with rhetoric that you are all one big team and together you will achieve great things. And then the minute things get difficult, the leader shows his true colors. And it turns out that unconditional loyalty is a whole lot more conditional than you thought. Like, but that doesn't seem to happen. It just seems to fall apart.
I agree.
And he doesn't even. It's not even like some parts of his empire fall away, but his core remains, or like it's just all hollow.
Do you think the makers of the film were trying to kind of like follow on with the theme and the environment of the actual film in terms of obviously it gives you, like I said, it's chaotic and erratic, and the way that they were transitioning from the time frames, like the way that they were going from the future, it was very, like I said, it was very erratic. Like especially remember Furiosa's wig, and then the scene where it got stuck onto the, what was it, like a twig or something like that?
Like a branch, yeah.
And then the way that it just transferred, like it showed obviously how we'll fast forward into the future. Do you think that's what they were kind of trying to like abide by, like follow, like they were trying to just follow that sort of method that was shown throughout the film in terms of like just the whole erratic approach?
I mean, you can imagine events that happen in between the scenes, right?
Yeah.
Where you say, okay, I can imagine decisions that Dementus made, or events that happened or whatever that undermined his authority, and he couldn't hold his alliance together, whatever it is. But it's not in the movie. Like if you are telling a story, like you don't have to show every step. Like it's okay if we can assume some of them, but I don't think we even have enough information to assume what happened. Like I said, like I think there should have been signs of why his rhetoric isn't real, or why it won't be backed up in a crisis, or why this is a fair weather alliance where people follow him as long as he wins, but the minute he struggles, everything falls apart. Like you can imagine ways in which that worked, but it's not in the movie.
Actually,
and it really stuck out because his loss of Gastown is really important in the story, right? That's where it all goes sideways, and that is where Furiosa can benefit and profit from it. And that is contrasted with how she and Jack actually help each other in a crisis, right? She could have driven away and left him to die, but she didn't, right? Like I don't think this breaks the movie, right? It's more like you had 9 years to come up with a story, and you have 2.5 hours to tell this story. But why are the missing chunks so big?
Yeah, I think that was just like an incomplete thing, like an incomplete tick box that they needed to do in terms of like create an opening for Furiosa, in terms of giving her a chance to actually get a revenge. I do agree with what you're saying. I don't think that was planned out whatsoever, because it was like I said, it was abrupt, it was random, and it was like it didn't show us the downfall whatsoever. So I think it was just a downfall which was just a downfall which was just an opening for Furiosa, which they clearly haven't fleshed out.
And I think both of my complaints can be fixed in the same way, which is make her life in the convoy be the bulk of the movie, because then there can be more scenes where she goes into Gastown and interacts with either Dementus directly or the people who work for him, and you can start to foreshadow how the coalition is fraying and why it is fraying, and then when it actually happens, you understand why it happens. Or in hindsight, you can see the signs once you know what to look for or something.
Quick question, because you kind of mentioned it a bit as well, which I was going to bring up. The point about sacrifice. How did you? Because I felt like there was definitely like a theme of sacrifice throughout this film. How did you feel about that? And do you think there was like a deeper meaning? Because you're good with history, so was there like anything to do? Like, was it in relation to like historical moments or
sacrifice in what way?
Like, for example, like in terms of like, remember the guys covered in white?
Yeah.
Obviously, sacrifice was big for them as well. The moment, obviously, Furiosa's mother, she kind of sacrificed herself as well for Furiosa. Jack kind of sacrificed his, like, he sacrificed his, I wouldn't say well-being, but he kind of sacrificed his leverage that he had, because he was respected amongst the community he was in, but he obviously he sacrificed that in for Furiosa. So the theme of sacrifice was, I think, like I said, was just big in this film. So do you think, I don't know if I don't know if you realized, I don't know if you felt the same way or...
Yeah, I'm not sure that they add up to being part of the same theme exactly, right? Like Furiosa's mother sacrificing herself, I think that was basically just because they have a functioning society, and she was trying to protect her child, or the child of her, or the future of her settlement, right? And I don't know if in Fury Road we actually get to that settlement. It's been years since I saw it, and what happened to them. I don't think they survive. I'm not sure exactly. And then the war boys, like the guys painted in white, those are like the ultimate expression of how like nations who go to war kind of destroy young men, right? Because you have to convince like 18 to 20-year-olds to risk their health and lives for an abstract goal that kind of benefits them, but not directly personally, right? So every nation that has ever gone to war has had to convince its young men to do that, right? And nations kind of succeed on the basis of being able to do that. And like the war boys are like a parody of that, right? Like they think they have this, like the Fury Road goes into this a lot. We actually follow a war boy for quite a bit, and we get into the psychology and the thought process that goes into being a war boy, and it's a little bit in this movie as well, like where they are ready to sacrifice themselves for Immortan Joe specifically, and they are willing to give up their health and their lives for victory, essentially. A victory that they will never see, probably. But I think, so those are almost kind of mirror images of each other, right? Where the war boys are like a destructive expression of that idea of sacrificing yourself for your community, where it's done cynically and with lies, and it's done in an exploitative way, where the war boys, like it's been a long time since I saw the movie, but I vaguely remember that basically the lifestyle of the war boys is not sustainable. Like the drugs they use to psych themselves up for battle so that they don't feel pain and stuff like that, that's not sustainable. There are no old war boys, right? Whereas the sacrifice that Furiosa's mother engages in, that's sustainable, right? Because it means that the older generation risks themselves to ensure that the next generation has a future, right? So those are kind of mirrors of each other, and like they approach the same idea, but one from a constructive way and one from a destructive way.
Oh.
I would say.
Cool. A deep meaning. I just didn't know, because I felt like sacrifice was definitely something which was shown throughout, even with what's the antagonist's name with the blonde hair and he was like
Immortan Joe.
Yeah, he sacrificed his brother as well. He sacrificed his brother. So I'm like, okay, so like
Immortan Joe uses everybody as a resource. And like he's a big factor, and the way he operates is a big factor in Fury Road. And you kind of have to watch the two movies together, which I think also harms this movie, because you have to have seen the 9-year-old movie that wasn't that successful. And I think it's an excellent movie, just as an action movie, but also world building and stuff like that, and all the things we've been talking about. But you have to watch the two together, because otherwise a lot doesn't make sense, because this movie doesn't bother really to explain how Immortan Joe's society works. Okay. But it does make sense if you've seen the other movie. And I think that is one of the things that's holding it back.
Speaking of characters, who would you say was like, who was your favorite character, best performance?
So I really wanted to like Furiosa. Like I think the version in Fury Road is a lot more compelling, mostly because she gets to do more cool stuff. After that, like Dementus, I think is a great character if he made sense. Like if like we've talked about, like if he had a complete arc, then I think he would be the best character in this, because like I really like this. I like the civilized people in an uncivilized world. Kind of like I said earlier, like Proximus Caesar was the same way, where he realized what had been lost, and he realized what he's capable of, and he realizes that he can't fulfill his potential because of the world he lives in, and so he resorts to being a tyrant, because that is the only, like he thinks that's the only way that works. Whether that's true or not is a different story. Like it's not clear that he could do anything else unless he like controls an oasis. But we also don't see him be a lot more gentle once he actually runs Guest Town. So, but like his like the performance and his personality, I think that is really really captivating. Who else? Otherwise, there's a bunch of like colorful characters in this, but not a lot stands out really. Like a lot of it. First of all, that's a point I wanted to get to after this. But what's your standout character?
For me, it was Dementus. You definitely touched on the point I was going to bring up. Like, he was so calm in such a chaotic environment, and for me, that was very. It provided a unsettling feeling, because it's like, Jesus Christ, like this guy knows. Even though he feels very calm, but he's a bit like, he reminds me a bit of Jack Sparrow, right? Like Jack Sparrow doesn't know what the hell. Like, you feel like he doesn't know what he's doing, but he knows what he's doing, so you're just waiting to see what he's gonna do. But
he's mad and unpredictable, but there's a method to it.
Exactly, but obviously the Dementus characters feels more sinister than Jack Sparrow. So it's like, this guy knows what he's doing, but it feels like he doesn't know what he's doing. But he's calm as well. So I wonder what he's gonna do next. And just know what he's gonna do next is gonna be evil. So I was kind of like anxious and just unsettled with like his next steps, like his next move, because you already know, like he's got a plan. We just don't know how he's going to execute that plan and how evil it's going to be. So he just felt, so it's weird, like he had like different personalities, and this character just felt confusing, calm, and unsettling at the same time, which for me and his performance and like the whole comedic humor that he had was so fitting for Chris Hemsworth. Honestly, because obviously I didn't really like with how like forced transition from, I think you guys were saying how he was a very serious character into this whole comedian. I didn't really like that, but I just liked that whole, because he reminded me a bit of Four, like the evil version of Four in this character. I don't know why. He just had
before he became a joke.
Yes. So he had the comedy that he was providing was it was good. It was hitting. It was fitting for this world. He had the it factor, man. He was ticking a lot of boxes.
But it wasn't like comedy in terms of he was funny. It was he was putting on a performance.
Yes.
Right. He was not himself. He was playing a character. Like Dementus as a person is playing a character because that is how he controls everybody else.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so every random crazy thing he does, there's a point to it. At least in the first half hour or so.
It doesn't feel like it. That's what they say with Jack Sparrow. It doesn't feel like it, but you just know that it's going to amount to something. Even though Jack Sparrow was a bit more.
There's a plan. There's a method to it, and there's intention behind it. But with Jack Sparrow, it was basically trying to cause chaos so that he can exploit the rigidity of the system, right? Like that his enemies are the system, and you destabilize the system, and that's where you create opportunity, right? That's why Jack Sparrow did things, but he was similar in the sense that he did crazy things, but in hindsight, you could see that there was a plan. Exactly. And I think Dementus is the same way.
Exactly. What are you gonna ask? You wanna ask something? I don't know if when you finish your point.
Yeah. So this movie is very brutal, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that sometimes happens off screen, sometimes on screen, where like it actually goes to places that I didn't necessarily think it would. And Dementus is often at the center of it. He's causing a lot of the time that brutality, while at the same time kind of playing this character of who knows what I will do next, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not exactly. So there's this idea in politics that if you come across as crazy, that means your opponent is constantly on the defensive because they can't anticipate what you're going to do. And he's doing that a little bit, right? Like when he tries to negotiate with Immortan Joe, and he has, I think, his brother, like, in some kind of contraption where he has, if he lets, it's like a dead man switch where if he lets go, the guy dies, and then it actually happens. Like he's kind of being like a chaotic force of nature, but you can see why he's doing this. It's there to kind of get Immortan Joe off balance.
I agree, and as well, and I knew it was gonna kind of stem into that from the scene, obviously, where he murdered Furiosa's mother right in front of him. Like when that happened, I was thinking, damn. Like it felt very, it felt very R-rated. It didn't.
It is R-rated.
Oh, I thought it was 15.
No. This is like this is one of the reasons why it's not. I think it is R-rated. But yeah, it very much doesn't pull its punches in that way. Like well, it shows the brutality of the wasteland in the way that I think that other movies didn't, which is probably part of why it's not doing as well.
He literally says that. I think that was like literally the set in stone for me. That way it was like what's about to happen. Like this journey is going to be a brutal journey, because when I saw the scene, obviously near the beginning, I'm like, damn, like I didn't know he was going to go to those lengths. That kind of showed me, because even though he starts off as, in a way, caring, because obviously when Furiosa ended up getting captured out of everyone, even though I did know that, that was kind of like his plan. I think his plan was kind of be like, I could sense the deception, right? So I knew that wasn't really his character in a way, but it was a mixture of the two. I knew that, it was, I just didn't know that character was going to amount to him brutally burning his mom right in front of Furiosa. When I saw that, I said, oh, okay, this is going to be a very, very brutal movie. Very brutal, indeed. So, yeah, I kind of knew his character was going to stem into this, I don't know how to explain his character, just into a brutal killing machine, but a tactical killing machine.
Yeah. More so than anybody else in the movie, he's doing it with a purpose and with strategy.
So we've
been very negative, right? So,
and I don't think we've been negative. I think it's been a good balance, actually. This one I'd say has been a good balance, because, like, for example, we've kind of given, because you did say that this would be your favorite, like you would have loved this movie if it wasn't for Furiosa, and you explained why. Yeah. But you did kind of give its flowers, which was going to lead into my question, like another question which was going to lead into positivity was, what would you say your highlight moment was?
So, like in general, I think everything about the movie is really solid. Like the way shots are framed and with the way ideas are communicated, both in character designs and in the dialogue, but also in the action. Like between this and Dune, I'm becoming more and more a fan of non-verbal cinema, where having too much dialogue kind of makes it kind of feel a bit TV kind of thing. Where like things like character demeanors and their designs and how they act and what they do should speak for itself. A lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time. And whenever a movie does this effectively, I think it really benefits from it. Like both this and Dune have very sparse dialogue, and both, and both have characters that are not terribly relatable because they're very alien to us. But they manage to pull it off because all of the pieces are there, right? Like the character designs and the environments and the way things are framed and the way character intentions are conveyed. And like in the places where it works, it really works. And as I was watching this movie, I kept waiting for the plot to start, right? And then it was over. Like that's kind of my problem with it, because like the first hour should have been maybe the first act or something, or like almost a prologue or something, and then that explains how Furiosa gets into this situation and why she works for Immortan Joe and all of these things, and then. Like I said earlier, her working on the convoy and seeing glimpses into the different aspects of this world and how it works, and over time the pieces come together for a plan for her. Like that should have been the movie, and it never quite gets there. And then suddenly the movie has to rush, like 2 hours, 15 minutes in, the movie realizes, oh, we have to establish a bunch of stuff. And then there's like this montage at the end where just pieces are being pushed into place. And like that I think is the thing that really where the movie really strains against its boundaries. Because that should have been the movie. Like that should, like, the first hour should have been condensed to maybe 20 minutes. And then the rushed stuff should have been the bulk, like 90 minutes at least. And it's debatable whether this needs to be 2.5 hours. Like there's a lot of stuff happens, but not a lot of story in that sense. And I think it would have, like, if we had really had focused on Furiosa's journey and understood why she becomes who she becomes, and why she makes the decisions she makes, and all the other stuff like the world building and the background and all of that, is like the foundation on which her story rests. That's what it should have been. But the two are kind of disjointed.
Okay.
And the reason I'm so hung up on this is because everything else is so excellent. Like everything about it's like the movie other than that is great and has the potential to be my favorite thing. But the story isn't there, I didn't think.
I hear where you're coming from. Honestly, I do. I don't really know how I can add to that besides saying I understand, and I do see where I do see the flaws in the film that I didn't see before. I wouldn't necessarily say it's fully affected my view on the film. I still, it kind of leads into my last thoughts. I think we should go straight into it. What would you say your last thoughts?
I have one more point I want to make.
Cool.
And that is that one of the things that, like, this movie, like I said, is 2.5 hours. There's a lot of stuff happens in it, but also a lot of it is kind of repeat of what happened in Fury Road in terms of characters and the factions and the vehicles and stuff like that. And there wasn't anything that made me, like, there's a lot of competent action sequences in this, but nothing where I said, oh, wow, this is amazing. Right? It's all like 7 to 8 out of 10 kind of thing, where it's all really good and it looks good, but there's a shortage of creativity, and the thing that makes you go, wow, that's a cool idea, or that's a cool visual. Like everything is competent to very good, but like every extra sequence is kind of what you expect. Every character is kind of what you expect, especially if you've seen Fury Road, because that introduces a lot of the stuff. And that's I think the other big problem with it, I think, is that it's all really well done, but nothing is really inspired.
Okay, I think for me, I actually really enjoyed the battle scenes. I think especially like obviously like the whole mixture of racing and battling at the same time. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I think for me, I do understand where you're coming from in terms of like it wasn't out of this world in terms of like creative. Like it wasn't like there wasn't anything that was done which was like memorable. I do understand that, but I think the way that it was executed, like it felt very forceful and very like in your face and just erratic. I keep using this word erratic is because obviously it links to chaos, and chaos is obviously a big theme in the world. So I think for me that's why I felt like the scenes were really good, because it was very up close and brutal and just people dying left, right. Like it was just everywhere. So for me,
but here's the thing, Fury Road already did that, and it did it bigger. And like that's maybe one of the problems with it being a prequel, is that everything has to be a little bit smaller and a little bit more subdued, because there's this progression of things getting increasingly crazy, right? Because every time you move forward in time, the character designs get a little bit more outrageous, and the vehicles get a little bit more fanciful. And by the time we go to Fury Road, you have like this guy playing electric guitar that is also a flamethrower, and he's bolted on top of a truck. Like it's like it's gone past 11, and it's just, and we see the same idea here, just a little bit more subdued. And I think that makes sense, and I like it when prequels do this. But the problem is that it's also underwhelming a little. Like it's got an underwhelming experience built into it, and you have to do something else. And so everything this movie did good, I thought Fury Road did better in terms of spectacle. Like the action sequences, the chase scenes, the vehicles, the character designs. Like everything is a little, like that wowed us 9 years ago. and this does the same thing again, kind of.
Mm.
And like I said, a lot of it is all of it is competent, all of it is good, but none of it really has this wow factor.
I'm gonna have to watch Fury Road again because I did watch, but like I said, I didn't fully remember.
Yeah.
I obviously remembered bits here and obviously the look of the film. So I definitely need to watch Fury Road again because I don't even have like, I don't know what to say to counter what you're saying. I don't want to counter what you're saying. You say, okay, I'm like, okay, let me see, because I don't remember it. So I'm gonna go and watch it again to see, just to compare the two, to see if what you're saying, if I agree. But yeah, okay, well, yeah, last thoughts and ratings.
So this is really hard for me to rate because like the gap between the foundation and the core of the story is so big. Like it's not even that any part is bad. It's just I think there are important things missing, and the decision of what to pay attention to, I think it's just a mistake. I think the movie pays attention to the wrong bits, and so that is difficult to rate it. I think it's really still one of the best made movies of the year so far. It doesn't rise to the level of Dune 2 or Planet of the Apes, but it's like I think we are kind of getting spoiled a little bit, where within like 2 months we've had 3 big epic sci-fi blockbusters that are all good, and 2 of those also stick the landing on the story. And Furiosa kind of sticks out because it has the potential for greatness, but I think it just has flaws that are too egregious in terms of actually delivering in the end, and that makes it hard for me to rate. But just as a movie, like it is still excellent. Like all the pieces are great, but I just thought there was a couple of crucial mistakes.
Okay. Well, for me, I definitely do see the flaws now. There were some flaws which I did see, or which I already mentioned, but I definitely, with the new, obviously, with the things that obviously Daniel mentioned, I definitely do agree. I definitely do think it wasn't fully fleshed out. I don't know if it's a thing where they did that intentionally to follow on with the theme of the film. I don't know. If so, then I don't think they should have gone that route. But overall, look, I can't change. I still believe for me it's in contention of being top 3 films of 2024. The feeling for me while watching this movie, and obviously, yeah, the feeling for me was I just was engaged throughout 2 hours and 30 minutes. It didn't even feel like it was a 2 hour 30 minutes film. There were times where I did think some scenes were long, especially in the racing scenes. But at the same time, there was a racing scene which felt very like a racing scene which felt very long, but I wanted to see more of. So there was some scenes which did feel a bit long, but there were some scenes which I wanted it to continue on going. So it was a mixed feeling. Overall, like I said, I'm giving this film an 8 out of 10. Overall, I just really enjoyed this film, and I just couldn't get enough of it. I actually thought about watching this for a second time again, even though I've only felt that way with Dune. By the way, with Dune. So I was close to watching this one for the second time. I said, it's once for now is enough, and I'll watch it again in the future. But yeah, this film was definitely good. For me, I do definitely see the flaws in it, and I do think there's a lot of room for improvement. But overall, I had a great time, and I definitely recommend you guys to go watch this film. This film it's definitely in contention to maybe top 5, definitely for you guys. For me, top 3, but top 5 definitely in contention. 2024.
It's still a great experience. Just
yeah, definitely.
I don't know that I want to rewatch it, knowing that there's that the story in it is kind of missing chunks.
Why I think
that's a shame.
What I think we can definitely agree on is the experience. You'll definitely enjoy the experience. Like in terms
if you want to experience the wasteland for 2.5 hours, this movie is the best it's ever been.
And just entertainment value and experience, definitely. In terms of like the whole story and in terms of character arcs, I definitely do agree. It definitely needs to it definitely needs to be fleshed out more. So I'll definitely agree on that. Don't be don't kind of go into it thinking, okay, the story, just the story is going to be very. Don't compare it to like Dune 2, for example, like where the story in Dune 2 was amazing. Don't compare it to that. Just entertainment value, go in there for that, in my opinion. In our opinion.
It's almost like the opposite of Dune, where with Dune you could say basically, well, we don't see enough of the world, maybe, or I wish we had seen more. But because it's laser focused on this one character story, and everything else is in service of that. And here it's kind of the opposite, where it's so in love with the world that the character is neglected.
I agree. I agree.
And you know, someone who cares less about character and story than I do will probably have a great time with this.
I definitely agree. Yeah, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed today's discussion. Let us know what you think down in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and comment also. But yeah, we will catch you next week as well.
Bye-bye.